this is not about fear. This is not about taking away your jobs. Yes, that is a potential outcome if we're not careful about how we work with this world-changing event, how we work with these new technologies. And we want to avoid that. So we want to create awareness of what artificial intelligence is, what direction the world is going in, and how everyone can use it to improve their and their communities and the world's people of the world's lives together. So I think that's where education, awareness, open-mindedness to adopting these technologies are important. Everything I say is my personal opinion and does not reflect the opinion or standing of my employer.
Welcome to the Care to Lead podcast today. We are honored to have with us Chinmay Abhay Nerurkar. Chinmay is a respected engineering leader with over 15 years of experience in AdTech, FinTech, and Embedded Software. He currently serves as a principal engineer at Microsoft, focusing on strategic engineering initiatives in premium online advertising experience, big data, AI, and machine learning. Chinmay is also a dedicated career mentor, speaker, and industry advisor. Today, we are so happy that he's here to talk with us about AI and how AI is disrupting industries everywhere. And we're excited to have him. Chinmay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia. It's good to be here.
Can you share a bit about your journey that led you to your current role in this industry and your passion for AI?
I always wanted to work on analytical or using data, using analytics, using numbers in some sense, statistics of the phenomena, the world around us to solve problems, right? So when I started in the industry working on embedded software, I was always looking for opportunities to improve the products that we were building, not just based on product requirements, but how can we use what peripheral data we have about how video works, how motion capture works, how motion detection works to make our products better. Even when I was in school earlier, I was trying to see how I could basically use mathematics, probability statistics to improve the outcomes of our electrical engineering, software engineering experiments. So that is something that I was always interested in carrying forward into my work. And as I started working in the industry after embedded software in finance and in AdTech, I was always looking for opportunities in this area where how could I take all this data that we have, draw inferences from that data, and use those inferences to drive product development and the benefits that the product delivers, right? So step by step, I worked towards working in this area where I could start with some sort of analytics and use it to deliver more benefits, more value to our clients. Over time, all of these have fallen in the domain of what we call data analytics, big data. Data science was a very big buzzword over the last 5-6 years. And now machine learning, artificial intelligence is very mainstream. So that's kind of how I steered myself to work in areas where I wasn't just building software through programming or the usual rubric that has been set up as best practices, but trying to see how I can do more through data-driven development, data-driven product delivery.
So you've been pretty much fairly instrumental in developing some of these programs, especially in the advertising. And so I have kind of mixed emotions about when I'm looking for something online and then it follows me all around. On one sense, I love that, because then it's it gives me exactly what I want to see. On the other sense, the other day, my daughter gave me a starter for sourdough bread, and I said, I don't know how to do this. And she said, just Google it. And I didn't Google it. I literally didn't get to it yet. And all of a sudden, the next time I picked up my phone, I started scrolling my Instagram, and it was all this stuff about how to do sourdough bread. That was creepy.
Yeah. So, yes, this is a new area, right? Even though it's very commonplace now where you experience things like these, the domain of data-driven decisioning or development of products is still fairly nascent, right? And it can obviously deliver a lot of value, as you said, you love some parts of it, but we're still, as an industry, as a population, as people, we are still trying to figure out like what's right, what's wrong, and how to do what's right and stop doing the wrongs, right? So when I say data driven, one thing that is very important, it's like people's data driven. We are not looking at machine driven rubrics or like some sort of like a rule book that was written by technicians or software engineers back in the past. We're looking at what people are doing, what people want, how they interact with each other and with the products and services that are offered in the world, right? And when we do that, we are able to draw insights from that to deliver better products to people, to deliver better services to people, right? In some ways, if you were thinking about sourdough bread and how to make it, some value was delivered there by trying to connect you with that service. At the same time, there is an aspect of this which feels invasive, and we need to continually work to figure out like how to do it in a more consentful, respectful, privacy compliant manner and in a non-invasive manner. So this is something that the industry is actively working towards figuring out, like where to draw the line, how to enforce this line, and how to deliver value without being intrusive. And this is really kind of reflected in some of the efforts, some of the privacy laws that are coming into picture. Companies are working towards figuring out how to do this right.
And I'm curious, just from your own stance on ethical use of AI, where do you see the biggest areas for improvement, so to speak?
The thing here, one thing we need to keep in mind with technological advancement, right, is it always open up doors for goods and bads. Like we live in an age where we enjoy the benefits, let's say, of clean nuclear energy, right? Although when nuclear age dawned, I'm sure a lot of people were concerned about like how it might be misused, right? And the reason we have managed to survive as a world without killing each other is because we've been constantly making efforts as countries, as states, as people, as the world to ensure that we are trying to use nuclear energy in a responsible fashion, right? So when we are working with people's data, we're working with things that can negatively, adversely affect some people, certain populations. We have to be extremely careful and really think, really collaborate with each other to ensure that we are not creating something that can lead to discrimination, that can lead to, tracking physical harm of people, right? At the same time, we do not really need to be intrusive. We do not really need to break someone's privacy to deliver value. There's ways that we are actively working on figuring out like how to deliver this product, this promise of giving better service than we've ever done before, better products than we've ever delivered before, while keeping everyone's individual privacy actually private.
It's interesting. It is. It's like this good and evil kind of thing that can go either way. And I look back like 3 to 5 years ago, and you would hear somebody talking about they can make these deep fakes of you. And they were using it, I guess, in political advertising and all sorts of advertising, these deep fakes. And now, like just recently, I was scrolling through and I saw an advertising company that says, create a deep fake of yourself and let that deep fake do all of your videos so that you don't have to be on camera. And so it went from this like kind of creepy thing to like, this could be really useful. So I think all of it has just, we need people with we need ethical people making the rules.
Well, I think it's always going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game, as it always is with progress. As you said, deep fakes do have a use. You can, even if you think of, say, doing stunts in movies, you could use deep fakes, you could use like computer generated actors to do some of the dangerous acts while letting the real human actors do the rest of the acting, right? At the same time, there is like this little double-edged sword. When I say that, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will think like, wait, like if they can do stunts, they can replace me. So
definitely the stuntmen think that.
Right? So I think it's not something that can just be tackled by like one ethical person or a few. It's something that we need to continuously, as a society, keep on working towards to make sure the benefits of AI in all form or all domains are delivered while protecting people for harm or preparing them to work with this new AI world, right? there's been times when like all of us wish like, there was a personal assistant who could help me do my work. I'm so busy, like I have so many things to do, right? And now we live in a world where that promise is kind of being delivered. We have these personal assistants, and like if we don't learn to use, if we don't learn to work with them, right, this AI personal assistants, we are going to be stuck behind. But we also have to learn how to use these tools effectively, and we have to like make sure just because we can use it in a certain fashion, we're not doing something that has detrimental effects for somebody else. That's a collective responsibility.
No, I agree. I had a podcast earlier today that I did with someone who said that he thinks with AI and using it correctly, like with the assistants and everything, that people can like cut their workday down to like maybe 1 to 2 hours of really good productive time, and then have the rest of the time to be creative or do whatever it is that they do. And I think that once people learn to expand their thinking and use it in that way, there's some reality to that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think AI, when we use it right, it will it'll kind of take the burden of menial repetitive work, repetitive processes off of us and allow humans to be more creative, something that is harder and harder in today's day and age where everyone's busy, everyone's overburdened in some form or fashion with work and other activities that they do, not just like employment related work, but like everything that they do. If you could offload some of that responsibility, some of that work to an AI actor, I think AI assisted robotics will be big in the next 3 to 5 years, right? So having help, like what you're seeing with the Tesla bot, that'll probably be here, who knows, like 5 years or 10 years, right? If you could offload some of the work that you do to this AI assistant, whether it's in robotic form or in chat GPT form, it just frees you up to show your creativity more, to basically do what humans do best. And in a way, that's adding value to the world, right? Like we're in some ways holding ourselves back because we're stuck with doing some of the routines, some of the menial things that we have to do to get through the day, right? If you could use that time to do what machines, robots cannot do, you're actually delivering more value to the world than you're delivering today. So that's the way
I think that
did it.
Using the AI, even in those day-to-day tasks, it's actually helping people think better because you're putting something in and you're seeing how quickly this response comes, and it's maybe very different than the way you would have done it. And I think that does expand thinking. It makes us more creative in the first place. So then our prompts get more detailed, our thinking gets deeper, and that helps everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think even in that sense where AI assists you with what you're trying to do, right? For a lot of tasks, you could say like, oh, it's my partner. I can like bounce ideas off of it. I can brainstorm with it. I can ask it questions. I think apart from I would say, breakthrough that we've had with AI or like with LLMs, with Gen AI specifically, where we can capitalize on like the global knowledge that's been learned by these Gen AIs to give us ideas, to ask it questions. One of the things that has also happened here is we've built like one of the best user interfaces, unlike anything that's ever existed before. Like if you think of it, if you wanted to do 2 plus 2 on a calculator, you have to learn to use the calculator in the way the manufacturer designed it, right? If you don't know how, like what's the right buttons to press, you can't use a calculator. But now you can ask the calculator, hey, what is 2 plus 2? And you get the answer 4. We've designed a very intuitive human interface that has broken down barriers for a lot of people to interact with computing, to interact with technology, right? And that's just like a giant leap forward for people to start using this technology to help them get their creative juices flowing, or to do something else like, automate menial tasks or like things like that.
So I'm curious, was there ever a pivotal moment for you that you said, hey, this is definitely going to make an impact. This is going to be a disruptor?
For me, so when I was a little skeptical when I first saw Chat GPT come out and being able to ask it like, hey, I have these ingredients at home and like, what is the recipe? Some recipes for it, what can I make quick, or like plan this trip for me? Things like that. I was a little skeptical of like how far it could go, but like then it just kind of like made me realize how self-limiting my thought was, right? Because that was kind of like a door opener, and I realized it when I heard from other people how they're thinking about it, how they're using it, how it could be expanded beyond that. And we've seen some of that progress over the last couple of years with like, newer versions of it, newer LLMs, new Gen AI coming into the picture. I was reading papers about how they could use it for, say, disease detection, or someone creating an app that could basically take photographs of like spots on your skin, and it could kind of give you some sort of preliminary guidance about like, okay, yeah, you should check with a doctor, it could be this or things like that. Yes, you shouldn't take medical advice from an app, but at the same time, like, you can kind of see the value of where this is going. Like, yes, there's work to be done here, but just seeing some of the things that other people could think this could be used for, and just the breadth of applications that people could think of, right? We've had machine learning, we had data analysis, we've had big data, data driven development of products for a while now. Let's say like a couple of decades, right? Nowhere before in time has someone, or like, has some technology come up that has excited so many around the world, and not just excited them. As I said, like, we've broken down barriers with this new kind of user interface that is much closer for a lot more humans to use and build things with.
Mhm.
We've created, not just created like an amazing tool, a technology here, but we also created like an interface which a lot more people can use this tool with. Right. So I think that's like realizing, just seeing how many people were thinking of applications for this, where machine learning AI used to be like a niche conference area, how accessible it's become. I think that was like the wake up call, the turning point for me, making me realize like, we have to be a lot more open minded about this. Only then can we think of the benefits, how we can read the benefits of this.
I'm curious because working in an organization like Microsoft, you're with people that are fairly open-minded to start with, and probably willing to change and accept change. But for leaders in a lot of industries that aren't Microsoft or Google or one of the big tech companies, or they're often dealing with employees and staff that are hesitant to accept change, hesitant to accept something like AI or see how it can transform. And I think one of the threats to a business is that if we see something like AI on the forefront and we think, well, this isn't going to impact my job, this isn't going to impact my future, this isn't going to impact our industry other than maybe some help with, remedial tasks,
Mhm.
that can actually 5 years from now be a really bad choice that you make today. So to get people to embrace change and look ahead and try to think ahead, how is my industry going to change, can be critical and transformational. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think it's important. I don't think so. A lot of people are not necessarily not open minded. They're generally set in their ways, and they're good at what they do with the tools, the technologies, like their job, like their domain. They're very good at what they do. And they're right. Like, when they think that, oh, my domain is not going to be affected by this, I'm good at it, I'm going to continue to deliver this. Right.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, what we as individuals or as groups even fail to see is like, we could do better, right? Others are going to do better with this new technology, with this new founded change that the world is experiencing. And we will continue to do well, but like, we will get left behind if we do not embrace this new change that's happening in the world, right? I mean, this is probably before me, but like when computing started, right? There was all sorts of things about like when computers kind of were gonna take over the world, they're gonna replace humans, they're gonna take away my job. At the same time, like, there's a lot of thought of like, oh, computing is never gonna take this away. This is always gonna be human domain. And that has changed, right? So
Mhm.
drastically, right? Like Amazon came out of nowhere. Retail stores always thought that, oh, people are always gonna walk into the retail store and buy things. And then Amazon kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but like it proved that model wrong. And now everybody has online presence, right? And if you refuse to embrace it, let's look at Netflix and how it's gone, right? Like the incumbents of the 20 years ago era, Blockbuster and other companies that did not try to like compete and chase that, they did not really do well over time. So that's where it's really important. In hindsight, like it's 2020, like, Blockbuster and other companies like that should have embraced technology. They should have like, gotten in the race. They might not have been number one, but like they might have been relevant, right? So if you want to be relevant like a decade from now, you kind of have to realize that you can't be set in your ways. You have to like go beyond what you think is right and learn these new skills, learn these new technologies, how to incorporate them to stay relevant and to become successful. At the end of the day, like we all want to be successful, be good at what we do, and deliver some value to our communities, right? So, like, it's important that we embrace some of these new changes, learn them how to do it right, not to do them wrong, and succeed in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, future.
Yeah, absolutely. And even back to like the advertising industry, which it is one of your specialties, AI has completely transformed it. And I'm curious what you would consider some of the challenges as well as some of the advantages for the bottom line.
The goal of advertising always is to connect people, connect communities with the goods and services that they need, right? To be more productive, to live better, enriched lives, right?
Mhm.
And I know advertising gets a lot of bad rap generally, but at the same time, like it does serve a very important purpose. Like a lot of people are connected even without realizing with a lot of goods and services that they need that they would not be otherwise without advertising, especially online advertising in this fast-paced world. And advertising, of course, deals with a lot of data because like this is a very human this is a domain that interacts a lot with people, with customers, with their habits, with what their purchasing habits, their usage habits, and things like that. So the advertising industry has dealt with data for a very long time. And the goal of advertising companies is to figure out how to connect users and products or services better. It's not to intrude on their privacy, right? So one of the challenges has been about like how do we do advertising better and how do we do upholding people's privacy better at the same time, right? And that's been hard because all of these data technologies, all of the machine learning AI technologies that have long been a part of advertising industry rely on a lot of data, a lot of times on a lot of like, customer centric data.
Mhm.
And we've put a lot of effort into trying to figure out like how to uphold our privacy promises, how to make sure we are delivering positive value, right? With some of the advances in Gen AI, we've actually benefited a little bit, I would say, because we're able to draw inferences on how to advertise better to certain populations while actually increasing the privacy promises that are delivered through these new technologies. So I think that has been a little bit of but it's been a major turning point, and we're actually looking forward to working more with it to improve our advertising products in that sense. Like as an industry, I think all the major advertising companies are working together to figure out how to use these tools. And we're excited about it because it's actually giving us an avenue to do more consentful, respectful advertising while allowing us to hit advertiser and user goals.
Mhm. What skills do you believe are going to be the most valuable for in an AI driven future?
I would say more than skills, it's going to be about mindset because AI and the direction that Gen AI and future advances are going to go in is are going to be about making these technologies accessible, right? So it's kind of going to, what I'm trying to say is like, it's kind of going to lower the barrier, the skill barrier for people to participate in this, right? So I think it's more important that we think about like the mindset, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of forcing us now to become creative and try to think of like how can I use Gen AI or how can I use some of these new advances in my day-to-day work, and how the skill part of it is going to be enabled by the technology itself or someone for you. right? So yes, like you want to be tech positive, if that's a skill, like you want to be open to it, but at the same time you want to be like more open-minded, more creative about thinking how you can use it to do your work better or assist you in your work.
So I love that. In the article that we did for Authority Magazine, we talked about a movement. If you could create a movement based on your influence, what would that movement be? And I kind of liked your answer in that, and I'd like to know if you'd like to elaborate on that.
The movement, I would say, is like, one of the things I want people to remember is this is a real pivotal moment for us as a world, right? Because some of the advances that we're seeing are coming faster than we've ever seen before. And it's only going to get faster. And it is going to affect us all, whether you like it or not. So the right way to go in this world, it's like when industrial revolution happened, people could not choose to like, oh, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm going to still live in a world 100 years from now where I'm not touched by industrial revolution. This is like, I've seen people call it industrial revolution 4.0 or industry 4.0. I'm not going to count the previous three numbers. But so the point is like, this is going to be such an impactful event for all of us, and it's going to touch everyone in the world. And the right way to navigate this is to participate in this event, to be a part of it. Why? Because one, it's going to touch every aspects of our lives, right? It's going to enable us to do more, but it's also going to leave certain folks behind if they're not exposed to it, they don't adopt it the right way, right? And so it's a collective responsibility, I think, for all of us, and especially for people who are practitioners, people who are experts in this field, to make sure that the benefits of this larger worldwide change are distributed evenly and fairly across everyone in the world. Which is where I think the movement that's required here is to create awareness of what this is not. This is not about fear. This is not about taking away your jobs. Yes, that is a potential outcome if we're not careful about how we work with this world-changing event, how we work with these new technologies, right? And we want to avoid that. So we want to create awareness of what artificial intelligence is, what direction the world is going in, and how everyone can use it to improve their and their communities and the world's people of the world's lives together. So I think that's where education, awareness, and open-mindedness to adopting these technologies are important.
I agree with you. I think that mindset is important. The open-mindedness is important. I think there's a lot of good that can come out of AI. And I think when I say that, I mean in like big things about population and energy and so on. I think AI can do a lot of good. What are your thoughts on what needs to happen with regulation and so on? And it can't just be like US regulation. Like a regulation on something like this almost has to be like worldwide regulation. How do we harness the good in all of this to be a good for all and improving the world?
So regulation is something that is coming from governments that are elected by people. And I'm an optimist. Like I like to believe that the system actually works, right? So we have people who are helping shape this regulation based on the needs of the local communities and the broader world. Yes, like each country has started coming up with their own regulation, but a lot of this regulation is not being prescriptive. It's being more like providing guidelines for what should work, what should happen, what should not happen in terms of results, like how this should benefit people or how this should protect people from being discriminated against, being harmed in some form or fashion. And companies that are building these AI technologies, AI tools, they realize that like they do not have any benefit from just building malicious actors using this new technology, right? They want to deliver value to the world. That's how you succeed long term. You can't succeed long term by building something that does not give value to the people of the world. People will see it, right? So they are working with the regulations. They're working with regulators together to try to see how to improve, how to use these technologies right, how to improve them in the right direction, how to do it in a way that benefits people and protects people who would otherwise adversely get affected by it. And I think that's just the way of doing it. I don't think it's easy to have like one global regulation that applies to everyone, but I think that's also the right way to do it. There's a diversity of thought there based on local communities that are affected by tools in their localization in their part of the world. And we also kind of get to see what works somewhere, what didn't work with this regulation. So I think it's in some form or fashion healthy to see what's working where, what's not working somewhere, and how we can improve on it. Like I think like a lot of US regulation has benefited from some of the laws that have gone into effect in EU with GDPR and things like that. At the same time, like, they've also seen like, hey, maybe they were being overly prescriptive in some cases, right? And there was room for them to improve so as not to stunt technological advancement, technological development, and kind of like, come towards a common ground of like, what this is the path to go forward.
We talked about some really big and important issues, but I'm going to just like spin this around to just a little bit of a fun issue. What is the most creative, fun thing that you've personally done using AI in your personal life?
Yeah, it's a small thing, but it's a personal thing for me. I'm an engineer. I'm a software developer, but like I've always been terrible at building user interfaces, right? Especially something like if you want to build a web app or something like that. And just learning how to build something that can create like user interfaces, something that can create like a small website. It's like a side project. It was something that amazes me more than it'll amaze a lot of people. But like just being able to use Gen AI to do something that I had personally thought of was like, hey, I'm not cut for this. I can write a lot of like, technology backend, things like that, but I can't put together something that anyone would like to see on their web page or on their app. And just being able to do that using Gen AI in a very short period, just as an experiment, I think it was just like, oh man, like this is amazing.
This is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's
really
like my
fun.
little personal thing. I was like, wow, if I can do this, people can do a lot more with this technology. I'm a believer.
I liked what you said in the very beginning, how you would pop in ingredients that you have in the house and say, what can I make quickly? I love that. I should try that.
That is actually true. I tried that out as well. That was actually a personal example. Like, hey, this is what I have in the fridge. What can I make with this today evening? And AI will help you with that.
That's kind of cool. What advice would you give to, like, I'm assuming you're a team leader, and I know that you mentor people and you coach. What advice would you give to another leader for leading their teams through this kind of change, for getting their mindsets on track?
Yeah, I would say you as a leader, you have to start by, lead by example, right? You cannot tell like your team like, hey, this new thing is coming up. You have to learn this Gen AI, you have to learn this new technology, and we have to think of using it in our job, right? You have to make sure you're kind of making it a movement for your team. You're leading by example by showing how it could benefit them, how it's helping them grow, right? And that goes with almost every kind of technology or every kind of change that you want to bring in. You have to show empathy to people to understand their concerns. Some of them might have genuine concerns about like how that's going to affect them, or fear like, hey, this is not something that I'm interested in. This is not something that I think I can do. So you have to like, work with them individually, or depending on like, how big your team is, like enable people to work with their sub teams individually to bring them on board, right? Because only when you can bring people on board, when you can show them what the benefits of this can be for them and for their community, generally that's when they believe in you and they work with you. And you have to work with them to always make sure they're able to see those benefits realize. And I think that's really the way to go about it. Like if you wanted to drive adoption of this new technology and drive its benefits out to your clients, you have to like kind of bring the group on board, help them with actually driving development, building of products, like through every phase of the life cycle, and show them through example that like, hey, this is how we can deliver this promise. And that's when you're really empowering them to do better.
I think as you were speaking, I got this idea because a lot of the companies that I work with, a lot are tech, but a lot aren't. So some of the team, like the executive teams, are a little bit less. I don't want to say less open. They just are a little more hesitant to just go all in on AI. So I can almost see like a connection because I'm all about connection, right, in leadership. I can almost see like an exercise that you could do with your team just for fun and say once a month for the next 6 months, every time we have a team meeting, everyone's going to come up with one new thing they've done with AI this month or this week or whatever.
Yeah.
And like kind of have a competition so that people just get comfortable using it for things like what's in my house and what can I make for a recipe or, how can I write an email better? Once they start using it for those things, then it just opens up ideas for so many other things. And that, while it seems like it could be a waste of time for a meeting, is actually not. It's huge because once their brain starts wrapping around what AI can do, it's naturally going to just pivot into, hey, what can it do in my industry? What can it do in my department? What's it going to do 5 years from now? And that's how you start that thinking going.
No, absolutely. I think exposing them to actual tangible benefits or like, what you can do with it definitely helps here. Like in companies, they generally hold all, hackathons where people are given like 2 days of like, okay, you're not working these 2 days, you're building something cool with these technologies, right? And a lot of times, like we also bring people who are experts in this, who are good at teaching, right? Like, I might be like positive, like open-minded on a technology, but I might not be the expert on this. So bringing people who can enable your team, right? By showing them examples, by showing them how to use these tools, by showing them how to code with these, by answering their questions is all about like enabling them to see what they can do with it. And as you said, right, like, running hackathons where like, hey, you have 2 days to build a cool project of your liking to solve some problem. And people generally have things they want to do. They generally have things they want to solve, problems they want to solve with this, right? And so when generally in a hackathon, when people come up with different ideas and they build something in 2 days and they share like, look, we built this with this technology and these are the results we got. We can, if we were to continue working on this, like we could actually make this much better. And this is how we could convert it into a product, or this is how we could like, use it to make something better. This is how we could use it to improve our internal workflows. People notice it and people get excited about it. And I think that is something that as leaders we need to do is to get people excited about this new technology by enabling them.
I think you're 100% right because once they're excited, the buy-in is there and then anything can happen from that point on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm personally excited to see like what in general we come up with in the next like 2, 3, 5 years with these new technologies where we take it. I think we're all players in this.
I think it's like looking back, you're like, how did we survive without things? I look at GPS, like how did you get anywhere without GPS telling you when to turn, right? So
I was just telling someone yesterday, like, man, now when I book a flight, I'm generally thinking of like, is there Wi-Fi on this? And when I was flying like 10, 15 years ago, like that wasn't a thing. So we've become so used to this new technology. But yeah, it's also about like how you use it, because that's what eventually matters, right? Like, whether you're doing good, whether you're adding net positive value to this world, to your community, to your people. That's very important to think while we embrace these new technologies.
absolutely. So, Chinmay, all of your links to get in touch with you or reach out to you will be posted with the podcast as well as in your article. But do you have a particular way that you would prefer that people reach out to you? I always like LinkedIn is my happy place. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm really active there. What's your area that say, hey, if you want to reach me, here's the fastest way to get a hold of me?
LinkedIn again is the best way to reach out to me. I like that. Yeah, people can reach out to you, ask questions. It's a great place, professional place.
Okay, awesome. And is there anything that you want to add to our listeners as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, I mean, I keep on like beating this, harping on this, but yeah, like, I mean, our world is changing as we know it. And everyone, even more than before, has an opportunity and the ability to participate in this change and benefit from it, right? And benefit from it themselves and benefit like your local communities, your people, and the world. So I'm going to encourage people to see how you can educate yourselves, your peers about AI, the advances in it, and how can you use it to make it better. Like you could be an artist, you could be a journalist, you could be an actor, you could be a technologist, you could be anyone from anywhere, and you have something unique to deliver to the world. So you see if you can use this tool, and I encourage you to find ways to do that and deliver your unique creative value to help make everyone's lives better.
I love that the people that are out there creating this kind of stuff are the ones that are so passionate about how we use it and getting people excited about it. So that's really awesome. And I want to thank you so much for being here. Your insights are so valuable and you just have so much to offer. To our listeners, I hope you found value in this episode of Care to Lead. And until next time, remember, leaders who care to lead. Subscribe to our podcast for more conversations with today's top leaders. Thank you.